All right. Hello and welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. I'm Gilberto Hernandez, lead developer advocate here at Snowflake, and I'm going to be your host for today's Snowflake's live stream. Now, before we dive into things, I always love to know where folks are tuning in from. So if you could maybe drop where you're tuning in from in the chat here, hopefully I'll get a chance to shout out a few folks. Let me see here. I'll just wait for those to come in. So just to give you a heads up on what we're going to be covering today. So we're going to be talking about how to build and share data products today. And I'm joined by my colleague and expert on the subject, Henrik Nielsen. He's a data cloud architect here at Snowflake. Henrik, how are you doing?
Hi, Gilberto. Fine, thanks. Doing well. How about you?
Awesome. Doing well too. Yeah. Thank you for being here today. I'd love it if you could take a few seconds to maybe introduce yourself and give our viewers a little more background on what you do here at Snowflake.
Sure. So yes, as you said, my name is Henrik Nielsen. I'm based out of Copenhagen in Denmark. Wonderful Copenhagen. So, and my role at Snowflake is I'm part of this data cloud architecture office where we engage with CDOs, enterprise architects to explain a bit what Snowflake is, far and wider than just a data warehouse. We're much more than that, and it is a much of a conversation through business value of what that Snowflake can provide, right? And one of the key components around interoperability that we're seeing is the concept of data products that we're talking about today.
Excellent. Yeah. And I think that's a perfect segue because, when I'm at meetups or online, I'm talking to builders. Some folks are familiar with the term data product, some are not, even though they maybe have interacted with one in the past. So I thought maybe we could start by giving our viewers a little more context on the term data product. So Henrik, just quickly to start, like what exactly is a data product?
Yeah, so there's data products are. I think they came out from the whole concept around data mesh that was set out about 5 years ago. And I think for me personally, that has been one of the biggest things to come out from the whole data mesh discussion has been the concept of data products. Because as I mentioned before, we see it as a key component in interoperability with data. So like a building block for a modern decentralized federated architecture, which is what one of the things that data mesh is about, but also more than that. At the same time, it's a digital product, where the primary value comes from data and code, and the main outcome of a data product is that it's meant to support the business in decision making. So when you're trying to make some kind of decision, there can be data products around that. There's like these principles around or characteristics around data products that are also there, but I think it's probably easier to talk about like give an example, right? A data product could be, for example, like order history. We're going to be looking at that in the demo a bit later. That would be a data product that provides a list of the customer's past purchases. So, it's easy to discover. It has an endpoint that you can access it through. It has a clear schema and can be used on its own, but it can also be used as a feeding into other data products. Like, for example, it can be a source for the product recommendations that we see, when we're browsing on Amazon and such. It can build on the historical purchase orders or data, plus the product catalog data to suggest relevant items for the users. So that could be like an example of how several data products can work together.
That's great. Yeah. And I, that's a good example. And I'm sure there's variations of that as well. So one thing that comes to mind is now, we're in the age of AI. So I'm curious if, are you seeing any trends around how data products are changing in the context of AI, maybe like an AI ready data product, what kinds of things are you seeing in that space?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. So AI is the hype of the moment, but at the same time, it's also driving us to be better at describing data. I think that's one of the main key points, because you can create AI agents, LLM, that can start working with data. But if the agent or the model doesn't know the context of the data, that is something that we need to provide it as well, or can be provided also through other LLMs. So it's pushing the data products to be more self-sufficient and self-describing, because historically you would have maybe in Oracle or SQL Server, you would have a table schema that that describes a table or a view, but that's not enough today. We need to have more information about that, or it could be an XSD file that explains what an XML file looks like. But it's not enough for the AI applications to actually understand the data that they're working with, and this is where the semantic models come into play, which are a key component in these AI-ready data products. But again, in the end, these data products are really just sources for the different agents that work with data.
Yeah, awesome. Very cool. All right. So I know you have even more detail on the subject. So what I'd like to do is turn it over to you and have you walk us through a deeper dive on the subject.
Sure. Yeah, so I've bringing up the slides here. I'm not going to PowerPoint everybody to death here. Just to set the stage a bit, and also kind of like set the stage for the demo itself. What we're looking at is a bit of let's do a quick what is a data product in our concept, and give way to describing a bit what the Snowflake Internal Marketplace is, how that also can expose these data products, and then really what we really want to do here is actually see it in action and wrap it up with a demo, right? So I think like a couple of minutes on these slides, and then let's go dive into the demo. Okay.
Sounds good.
So it is around being, I mentioned before these characteristics of data products. It's around them being secure, interoperable, easy to share, and also accessible and discoverable. I think these are like the main characteristics that we're looking at. And these should be the foundation of an AI strategy. We are looking at data products as these Lego blocks. I'm from Denmark, right? So I like the analogy of Lego bricks, right? But it is like these Lego building blocks that you use to kind of put these things together, the data products, so you can actually start feeding data into your, it doesn't have to be only AI, it can also be dashboards and reports and so on, right? It doesn't have to be AI everything. But the data products, the point we see from Snowflake is that they are created a collection of ready-to-use data sets that will help you make these better business decisions. And for that, you need not only the data, but also the context. It's not only the AI agents that need that, we also need it as humans to understand when we're going in and to start consuming a data product on the marketplace. What is it what are the goals of this data? What is the update frequency? What is all this information that we need around the data quality as well, right? And these data products, they need to at the same time to be secured as well. And that's also, I'm going to show a bit how the request flow is, and getting access to these data sets. The data products, the way we see them, they're made up of these four. There's a lot of capabilities around data products, but they're more four main groups. There are data, metadata, code, and then platform dependencies. If we open this up a bit, I'd just like to highlight one of them is the down here on the right. We have the AI and ML apps. So one of the things that we are adding, apart from tables, views, files and functions and object names and data types, all these kind of metadata that we're used to as people who've been working with data for a long time, we're also starting to add these AI enablers for the data. So it is semantic views, as I mentioned, to give more context around the data. You can query these semantic views, which are really a collection of different tables that are joined together, as an example, but also agents, right? It can be MCP services. And also one thing that we've launched this summer in Snowflake is the Cortex knowledge extensions, which are ways of actually bringing in data from external parties, like Stack Overflow is an example, where we get that's one of the very, very popular Cortex knowledge extensions, but it's actually providing more context to the agents, right, or to the data products. So the way that we work with these data products in Snowflake is through this Horizon catalog, and we're going to be focusing on the orange box, which is the discovery and collaboration. But just keep in mind that this is part of a bigger picture where you're actually starting with making sure that the data is compliant in terms of regulatory requirements. It's secure. It's within these security confinements or security walls of Snowflake. So making sure that data cannot be accessed by unwanted actors. And also having these privacy controls, which we'll be looking at a bit as well, is like, how do you make sure that even though the data is available in Snowflake, that only the people with the right privileges, the right roles, can actually see and access the data. So we're talking about things like row-level access control, data masking, and so on, right? And this is done dynamically based on the role of the people accessing the data. But we're focusing on the discovery and collaboration here, and this is where the internal marketplace comes into place. This is the main component of our discovery and collaboration feature, and the marketplace is a self-service hub that is native to Snowflake, native to our platform. So, and this is where all your internal data products are shared and made discoverable by your teams within the organization. It's very important to notice that we're leveraging technology that has been used for like 5-6 years in Snowflake already. This is building on what we've done with the public marketplace, where we already have thousands of listings and thousands of providers as well sharing data publicly. But this is like the more confined internal marketplace that we want to make sure that the data is only shared within your organization or the customer's organization. It allows you. It is a bit of like like an app store or an Amazon, where you can go in and on the marketplace and find these data sets. This is where you deploy your data products in Snowflake, and it can give you this capability of not having to go to each and every single domain and look for the data product, but actually it's a bit like a supermarket experience where you go and buy the toothpaste, you go and buy the cornflakes and things like that, but you don't have to go to the providers themselves. This is the same idea, right, with the internal marketplace. And the products that we're sharing are we in Snowflake they're called listings. I'll be showing how we create a listing and also how we add all this metadata, assisted also by AI services within Snowflake. So it can be multiple data objects, bundled as a product. We add the ownership contact information. We add a business description, intended business purpose, data dictionary. I'll be showing how we can leverage the existing metadata to show that the data and the preview and everything, so that the consumer can actually go in and do a proper evaluation of this data product. Is this something that is useful for me? Good. So that's basically it. I don't know if there are any questions on the channel or anything, Gilberto, or you have any comments before we dive into the demo?
I think that was great, and I like how you called out that for folks who are already familiar with the Snowflake Marketplace for external listings, the pattern is very familiar for the internal marketplace. So you're going to have a similar experience this time, though it's focused on data products for your org and your team. So I really love that you covered that. I know our folks love a good demo. So what I'd like to do is give you the chance to dive into a demo. I do see a question coming in. We're going to have Q&A later, so we can start with that question later. But maybe let's go ahead and do your demo.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. So just giving a bit of an overview of what the demo is. So this is setting up this scenario where we have 3 domains. There's a sales domain, there's a marketing domain, and a supply chain domain. And what I wanted to notice here is that it's like 2 of the domains, they have their environments within Snowflake on North Europe, Ireland. And the supply chain, they have for business reasons, for whatever reason, they're actually running on Google Cloud. On the London region. We see this quite often, especially when companies are doing a lot of acquisitions. They're acquiring, even though you may have as a company a strategy around, okay, we're in like an Azure only shop or an AWS only shop. Many times we see company acquiring other companies and they start getting these other cloud providers in. What do you want? Do you want to do a migration, or can you also then let people continue on the clouds that they're used to working and then unite the data through the internal marketplace? So that is what we want to do here. And I've set these up already. There are a couple of 3 profiles that I've set up in this, I think we call an organization account. We won't be looking into that much today, but you can always ask your account team or your Snowflake account to tell you more about this. But at least right now, we won't dig so much into the organization account, but this is like an overarching account that contains metadata for the different domains and environments. But we will be working directly in these different domains here. So I already created the profiles and the domains. That is already in there to save a bit of time. We only have around 20 minutes left, and this can go much longer, right? And we have what we're going to do is I'm going to create a listing. I'm going to publish it on the internal marketplace and show you how to do that. We're going to set up a request and approval workflow. So we're actually going to have to request access to this data and approve it and show how that works. And then once we have that in place, we will just quickly consume this listing directly in the account where we're showing it. I'm actually going to be showing it both cross-cloud, but also within the single region. But one thing we'll notice on the demo is that I'm actually going to we're going to replicate the data, but this is just like a checkbox in Snowflake. I've worked with other customers that have set up these cross-cloud replication which are quite costly. The reason why we do this replication is to avoid many times, querying a lot between different clouds can be quite expensive. So if you do a one-time replication, then it's much better to co-locate the data to where the actual queries are running. And then, so that's the consume listing part. And we'll also be showing, if time permits, how we can actually set up some row access policies and data masking policies as well to protect the data. So make sure that only the right people are looking at the data that they're supposed to be looking at. Okay. So so I have 3 tabs open in the window here. You'll notice that the colors match the domains here on the map. So we have the orange sales team on the Azure North Ireland. We have the marketing team there in the same account, just a different username. And then we have on GCP, we have the supply chain management team, right? So that's the green one. So that is a bit how we're going to be navigating this. If we go to the sales team, you'll see it's already logged in and everything. Everything is open here. So what I have is a database that is called TPCH. This is some benchmark data that we're using directly as an example here. Oh yeah, and by the way, I forgot to mention. I'll mention it later as well. This whole demo is actually available on our quick starts page as well. We can maybe talk a bit about that later, Gilberto. But
Sure.
that is something you can exactly. So that's something you can actually go in and recreate this environment and play around with it yourselves, right? Anyway, back to the demo. So the tables here. That contains some data, right? So we have some customer data, line item. This is basically from a store, but we also have like some suppliers and the customers and so on. So this data contains information around that. Which the data set is not that big. We're not looking at performance here. We're more looking at the facility, the capability of going across different domains and sharing data. We have a view as well that we want to work with. We have some semantic views and so on, right? That these things are data products that we want to share across the organization. The internal marketplace I already loaded like I put in 3 data products already, just so it doesn't look like an empty screen. But we have that on these 3 different all these different accounts. What I'm going to do now is go in and create a new one, right? So going into private sharing, there's like several ways of doing it. Going into private sharing and saying, okay, I want to share data want to publish this to the internal marketplace. Then it brings up this wizard or this step-by-step guide on starting to create the data product. So first of all, I of course need to give it a title. So that's like a business-friendly title we put in here, Order Insights. Then I need to select one of these profiles. If you remember, just popping back to the diagram here, the 3 profiles here that I've loaded. But they're the ones that we use here to define which domain does this belong to. So as this user, I actually have privileges of being able to publish in the name of in the context of the sales domain, but also the marketing team if I wanted to do that. It is something that is controlled through a role-based access control as well. So I'm selecting sales as the profile, adding a data product. And the data product, quite interestingly here, doesn't have to be only tables of views. It can also be other components, like I mentioned before. It can be a function. So we have a secure function. So this function is basically, I give it a customer number, and it's going to give me all the orders, right? A very simple function, but it's where we start sharing logic instead of just data sets. And this will actually run on my own data.
That's really cool. Just to chime in really quick,
exactly.
That's really neat, because I think a lot of folks, when we think about these data products, you might instantly think of a table as an example or like a clean data set, but this is really cool that you can share functions as an example.
That is a natural thinking, right? It's like, oh, your data product is just a table or a view or something like that. But in Snowflake, it can be a function. It can also be a Streamlit application and so on, right? These things can be shared across these data products. I'm just going to share some products, some tables here. Just take most of them except the region one, and then we'll take the view as well and bring that in. Okay. So now I have this data product. Just going to click done here and give it a readable name for the share. So what's happening here is that you see one of the main concepts around listings in Snowflake is that it's a share. So a share is something that has been possible in Snowflake for the past 6 years or something like that, right? Where you can create a share, you assign objects to that share, and then you make sure that other accounts can access this. We're just automating this whole process with the internal marketplace or the listings, and we're also adding the capability of describing the share, right, or the listing. So adding a lot of metadata, for example, like describing your data product. So you can add a description here. One of the things that we're currently adding is the possibility of suggesting that that we actually suggest through and like a small LLM function to that generates a description based on the tables and the views and the functions and everything I selected. You see that here in the data dictionary that we can also use this to so I can select which tables I'm adding as part of this. This is more the metadata describing what the data is and to giving you previews. So I can add, for example, the customer table to that and the line item. I can also add, if I go into the part, for example, the part table, you see there is actually no description of it, but I can write a description myself, but I can also ask Snowflake to generate a quick description of the data, and it will actually look in and say, okay, this is a product information. Each record represents a single product, and so on, right? So this is actually giving a description of what I'm working with here.
Very cool.
Yeah, exactly. So it's making life easier, right? In the end, that's what it's all about, in part. Yeah. And one last thing I wanted to show here on the data products is the possibility of adding usage examples. So these are examples around how to actually query the data. So these are this will give the provider the possibility of giving examples of how the data can be queried, some example queries. So adding, for example, here, this is just a select star, but it could also be, like I mentioned before, we had this one function. Oh, sorry, that was the wrong one. I need to put it in here in the query. So I added this query, but it can, if I add another example that's a bit more, gives a bit more information, is the one around using the function that I mentioned, that you can add details for, find details from one customer. Just put in the title here. And what happens with these functions or these example queries is that when you consume the data product, you can just click a button and it'll open a worksheet in Snowflake with these queries already in there, and you can get started by. So it's a perfect way of the provider to give the consumers a way of getting started with the data set.
Yeah.
So there is something here that is not, I didn't get the whole to SQL, that's why. So it actually also validates the SQL right before allowing
Before you
us
publish it, that's good.
Good way to make a mistake, right? Then we have more information, documentation. You can add links in here to documents if you have something on Confluence or some kind of internal wiki, legal terms around the data. This can also be, a bit when we start going into the data contract thinking, and also attributes. So right now we have these predefined attributes, but we're also adding the capability of creating custom attributes that you can define, and also the valid lists of values, right? So this can be the update frequency of the data and so on, but we'll keep this blank for now. Last thing I need to do is define who has access to this data. So who can discover the data and who can actually access it, right? So we have two levels granting access. I can provide access to this data or to this listing directly. So I can say, okay, the entire organization is going to be able to access this data right away, and then it'll just pop up as a data product within their accounts. You can also specify selected accounts and roles, or we can just say there's nothing pre-approved. Everything has to go through an approval and request workflow, and that's what we're going to be doing here. And then we'll say also who can discover. So the one thing is accessing data, but the other one is who will actually see these tiles on their internal marketplace. Will it be available for the entire organization, or will it only be set for specific people? And I'm selecting here that it's going to be for the entire organization, the default. And then the final thing I need to do is set up the request and approval flow. And right now I have two options. I can say, so this is when a consumer is going in, clicking on the data product and say, I want access to this. How should this access request come through? And we can either do it by managing the request in Snowflake, or using some external tool through a URL or an email address to kick off this process, right? We're just going to keep it inside Snowflake right now, and we're going to be using my email address for the notifications and the whole process. I can also add other roles that have like a data steward or something like that can also approve these requests on behalf of me. So that's how we can do the approval part of it, right? So last thing, I actually said last thing before, but there's one last thing you need to do. And just going back to the overview, there is a replication happening here, right? Once the Google or the Google Cloud consumer is asking for access to this data, we're going to kick off a replication that is going to be incremental, it's going to be secure, and it's only happening with a frequency that you as a provider define, right? So when I go in and define this here, there's some additional setup needed. I need to define how I share the accounts and how I share the data in other regions. For the sake of this demo, so that it goes quickly, I'm going to be making the refresh every minute, but I can also do it on a scheduled time and on different frequencies, right? So there it is. Now we have the listing defined, and we can start consuming this. So I click save. And I can now preview it, but so I can also publish it right away, because I'm pretty sure that I did everything the way I should. And now it's on the marketplace, right? So went a bit quick here, but this is at least now the case. So we can go to the marketplace here. So when I'm going, sorry, this is the public marketplace. I actually need to go to the internal marketplace. And then you see now the order insights data product that I just created is available on the marketplace. It's the same thing goes for the marketing team. They can also see this data product, and of course Also over on the GCP side, there is no lag here. It's available right away because we have this concept of the snow grid that is running in the, connecting all the Snowflake accounts. This is actually where this is coming into play, where this is appearing directly as a tile on the internal marketplace on the GCP side of things. Good. So let's go to the next one. That was the publishing, right? That was point 3. That was a bit of a long one, but let's go in and consume the listing. So I will go over to the Google side of things, and I'm just going to do this a bit quickly to kick off the actual request. So now you see there is the request and approval workflow is going to start now, right? So I see this data product, I see the examples that I put in here, and also now I say, okay, I want to request access to this. Then I can provide a reason, of course. Let's see that we need access to this data to analyze order patterns or to optimize the supply chain operations, right? So I submit this request. And what's happening now in the background, I'm going to get an email requesting this access. But I can't show that to you, unfortunately. But I can.
You as the publisher, you would be getting that email, right?
Yeah, that was. Do you remember when I went into this, when I defined the data product? There is the contact here. There's a listing request approver, so I'm actually getting this email to my
Very
email.
cool. Okay.
But at the same time, I also get a notification here in Snowflake under the Provider Studio. So the Provider Studio is where we handle everything related to internal and external access to data.
Yeah.
The internal request, you see there's a little one here that there's notification that there's a pending request. And that is the one I just created at 7:26 p.m. here in Denmark right now, right? So I grant the access. And then on the consumer side, let's see if we get time for this because time is running a bit low now. I can then now, you can see now I can actually say, okay, I want to actually have access to this data. And this is where this data getting ready will take, it takes usually about 2-3 minutes, where the data is then now being replicated over to the consumer side, right? And this is something that is going to be replicated all the time. And one of the main reasons why we do this replication is to save costs for the transfer of data between the cloud providers. Yeah. Just to show quickly how it looks when we do it a bit faster, because this is on the same region. So I'm doing it on the marketing team. If you remember, they're on the same region and the same account as the sales team. Then I'll request the access. It's going to have the same workflow here. So we need access to this for our marketing campaign, and then go over to the provider side again. So I'm jumping a bit around here. Refresh this, and then we see there is a listing. Right, this is pending here. I grant the access, and the idea now is that this is also what's going to happen on the GCP once the data has been replicated. Is that I can just go and say now I want to query this in the worksheet because my user has been provided access to this. Right, it says it's ready to query. And what this means now is also I have this tab here called Data Products, where we usually only have the database and worksheets. But now I can actually also see these data products directly from the interface here, and I can start querying the data. Right. So now this is the getting us the order summary, and also actually running the function, right, that has been shared across the accounts here.
Very cool.
Yeah.
All right.
So time has been running a bit away from me.
No, that was good. I'm actually pretty impressed. You covered both aspects of this workflow, like publishing it, right? The RBAC aspect, and then you even showed how a consumer would be able to request it and then actually run it. So pretty impressed you were able to cover all of that. Now, just given that we have a few minutes left, I know we have some questions that are coming in. A couple of things before we actually dive into Q&A. And Henrik, I think maybe you can show this on the screen, is we have a VHOL, virtual hands-on lab, coming up, where if you want to go into even more detail with our expert Henrik here on the subject, on September 25th, we have a hands-on lab, and it's going to be talking about how to build and democratize, AI-ready data products within Snowflake. Here's the QR code that you can use to register. You can also find it on snowflake.com/webinars. And then I know there were a couple of comments around, how can I do what you were doing today during this demo? We have that in a quick start, and we've already shared it into the comments section, and we're putting it up here on the screen as well. So if you want to look at, go through it yourself and do what Henrik did here today, check out the quick start. And here's easy access, short link for you to go to it. With that, let's go ahead and dive into Q&A. We had a couple questions come in. So the first here is from Mohan, is, if we can pull it up. Yeah. How is Snowflake evolving its data products to support real-time analytics and AI-driven decision-making across industries like finance and healthcare. So, Henrik, I'm not sure if maybe this is something you've seen out there in the field, trends in these two verticals.
There's a lot of points to pick out in this
Yeah.
question. It's a really good question, right? It's I think the to support AI driven decision making and real time analytics, what we're driving at here is real time is about ingesting data, getting access to the data. That can be in different formats. It can be loading data into Snowflake. It can be accessing it in open table formats. There we already support, like, I wouldn't say real time, depending on what you define by real time. That's one of the things I would need to dive into, but like down to seconds of latency. That is something that we support now with Kafka integrations and our latest acquisition, or our latest launch of OpenFlow, which is an integration tool. And then AI driven decision making is also a lot about a bit what I showed, that you can also add, we're working on adding the AI models as well to the data products and making them available in the marketplace. Across industries like finance and healthcare, that is a lot very heavily regulated. I think that's what Mohan is referring to.
Yeah.
That these regulated industries usually, those are our two biggest industries of customers in Snowflake, in the sense that we have a very secure or very strong security posture, and that really resonates with these very regulated industries. And we're working very hard on building a lot of guardrails into everything that is related to AI and LLMs as well.
Yeah. Excellent. And I know, for AI-driven decision making, you touched on it earlier today, cortex knowledge extensions, which you can also go into the marketplace and get. So these are pre-chunked, already indexed data sets that you can drop into your AI systems. I believe there are some publishers here for those specific industries. So, that's basically knowledge that you can bring into your AI architecture if you're working with data in those industries. So, all right. So second question we have here. I think this is kind of talking about data products outside of Snowflake. Let's see if we can bring this up from Arahant. So, what if we utilize other marketplaces for data products like Informatica, but our data is in Snowflake?
That is a thing we see quite often, right? It's Informatica, it can be Atlan, Colibra, Alation, that you have marketplace in other places. We are working closely with these providers. Everything we saw today, that the listings that you created, they are consumable through APIs as well. So we are working together with these providers of data catalogs or marketplaces that have many different names, but we are working closely with them in making them able to understand and read these listings in Snowflake as well. So if you have other technologies, data sitting in other technologies as well, many times you would need like a cross tech kind of marketplace. Yeah.
Excellent. And we're almost at time here, so I'm going to chime in with one of my own questions here, Henrik. And first off, thank you for the questions, both Arahant and Mohan. For folks who are already sharing data today, what's maybe the biggest shift in mindset or architecture that's going to help them transition from just sharing data to sharing AI-ready data products specifically?
I think it's finding the right use cases for it, right? It's when does it make sense to actually share this? Is it a question of monetizing an application that you as a customer have, or you as a company have built? So we have partners, data cloud partners, we call them, on the Snowflake Marketplace, that are actually, their sole focus is to build these applications. The Snowflake Marketplace is one delivery channel, but there can also be others, right? But then taking that internal to a company is a new way of thinking, right? Because when you're building AI ready applications, what is exactly that you want to achieve with this? I think you just need to start with what is the value that it provides, what are the business outcomes you're trying to achieve, and not get stuck in these data science projects, right? That's what many of these AI applications they end up being. Really make sure what is it the business problem that you're trying to solve.
Yeah, excellent. So having that problem in mind will help you make sure you can reach that outcome.
That's like one thing that we can spend an hour talking about it, right?
Exactly right. All right. So we're at time, and so let's go ahead and wrap up. I just want to say thank you, everyone, for joining today, and thank you, especially Henrik, for doing that deep dive and that awesome demo. Couple of things to call out. This session is going to make it onto the Snowflake Developers YouTube channel. So if you're looking for the links to the quick start, if you're looking for the link to the hands-on lab, you can check out the video there, and we'll have that in the description. We've also dropped those links into the comments here, but be sure to check out the video on YouTube so you can actually see the links and have direct access to them. And with that, I'm Gilberto Hernandez. Thank you again, and I'll see you next time.
Thanks, Gilberto.
Thank you, Henrik.